Good morning and welcome to Morning Coffee with Brigid. I'm Brigid Burke, and today's the 11th of April, 2025. I did not live stream yesterday because I felt a headache coming on and I knew I had to go teach last night. So, morning, Joanne. Good to see you. Yeah, I just was, I had to go teach class last night, and I was very, very concerned because I remember last week when I was supposed to go to New York. I had such a brutal headache, and it was starting up that way yesterday, and I just thought, oh no. But fortunately, and again, I don't know if it's this new mushroom coffee I'm drinking. Good morning, Alex. Good to see you. Yeah, I don't know if I had, I don't know. I don't know if that actually helped head the headache off or cut it short. I'm not 100% sure, but I was encouraged by that. I think, what was it? And Alistair, hello, good morning / afternoon to you too. Yeah, actually it is afternoon for you. Yeah, I didn't end up coming on yesterday because I wasn't, and honestly it's weird because Wednesday when we closed out the live stream, I said, maybe you'll see me tomorrow. And I don't know, maybe I had a premonition of it. And I mean, I don't know, but I just decided not to. And, yeah, it's been a pretty exhausting week. I know I've had some interactions with some of you during the week, and yeah, everybody seems to have the same kind of experiences. I'm a little, and by the way, I'm a little behind on messages and things I've been going to send to people. I'm even behind on going to the post office. I woke up this morning to set this live stream up, and I just thought, oh my gosh, I'm like so, like feel like I'm. I was just doing weird things, like I was going to plug in, and for some reason, with the iPhone, I unplugged the actual plug part, and then I'm standing there with the USB going, what am I supposed to plug this into? It's just, yeah, it's been a little diffuse. And she just said, hey, Kathleen. So Kathleen must be on, and I just didn't see that she was on. So good morning, Kathleen. And good morning, Suda. Yeah, good to see all you guys on here this morning. Yeah, it has been kind of an interesting week where we've had a mix of people coming onto the live stream too. And I always kind of feel periodically I need to say to people, and obviously nobody, not really the present company, but I've had to say to people who come on, like people who say, well, I don't believe in tarot, it's all BS, or people who say, well, I don't like tarot because I think it's the work of Satan or whatever, then I'm just like, then they don't want to watch this. Go spend your time watching something else. Joanne saying, I've gotten that 8 of Swords, 3 separate decks every day since we talked. Wow. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Yeah, Joanne and I had talked on, I guess it was it Wednesday? It was Wednesday. And yeah, so yeah, because we had a session on Wednesday, and yeah, we were just talking about the readings that I do here on the lives and the fact that comes up a lot of the time. So, yeah, and I don't know, the 8 of Swords, there's definitely something. 8 of Swords has to do with a couple of different things. It can have to do with guilt. It can have to do with just, like I said, feeling stuck or feeling trapped, or having a lot of anxiety because we feel we don't have a space to move forward, but we actually do. But we may not be seeing what the way out is. Or at least it's not making itself obvious at this point. I've been seeing a lot, even from the messages that I've been getting, from Azrael and so forth, that are kind of like, you just kind of need to trust right now because the unknowable seems to be in operation quite a bit. And so, yeah, so we're still seeing. I did see a video yesterday briefly from Steve Judd. And I think I talk about him on this channel because he's one of the astrologers. He's one of like maybe 3 astrologers that I follow. Or that if their YouTube videos come up, then I will watch them. And he keeps them fairly short. But he was talking about the full moon that's coming up tomorrow. And these ones that are coming up, the full moon that's coming up, we have, he's basically saying that there's an energy. He is the one who had said that we were not going to have, that it was good not to believe anything that you hear through like mid-April. And he says, well, now I'm going to tell you, don't believe anything you hear through the end of April, because it's going to be after April. I think April 18th is the day that we have that last Mars-Pluto conjunction, which is where things could get really heated. And I think that's supposed to happen around April the 18th. And then after that, it seems like everything's going to calm down and decompress. So we are moving into that space. He did say that Mercury is moving forward very, very slowly. And I definitely can see that because communications have been weird and screwed up all week. There's been a lot of misunderstandings of people, situations, messages not getting through, people taking things the wrong way. It's just definitely been a week of where it's not, where communication still has definitely been stilted. And I think some of this too may have to do with the end of Venus retrograde as well, which ends this weekend, finally. And of course, as we know, when planets go retrograde and then they go direct, it takes a while for them to get moving. But it has definitely been a week where, I don't know, I was actually supposed to do a mental health training today for the school where I'm teaching. They actually usually have this like mental health first aid kind of thing. And I got the impression from the email sent about it that it was a very different kind of a class. And then I happened to open my email yesterday. She was, yeah, you were verbally assaulted by oh yeah, you were talking about what happened in the parking lot. I was on my live stream and Joanne had just come out. Yeah, your landlord's husband. Yeah, that sounds like, I don't know. You and I haven't had a chance to talk about that, but you posted about that. So I'm figuring that one was a doozy. Yeah, it's, there's a lot that's been going on, but this class I was going to take today, then I opened this thing yesterday at work and it was like, oh, this is going to be like one of these suicide prevention type things. And I know I shouldn't say that word on YouTube, but screw the algorithm. I'm just going to say it anyway because that's what it's supposed to be. It hit a trauma trigger. I have been off. Oh, okay. What Joanne is saying. Yeah. Well, I know that's unfortunate because I know that you probably felt triggered even before that. And now that just didn't really help the situation because we had done a session to kind of calm things down and. Yeah, so I'm sorry that happened. But then then I got to work yesterday and I looked and it said to me that there was like 2 or 3 hours of pre-work that I was supposed to do and a test before even taking the class this morning. And I'm like, well, I don't know. I guess to be fair, maybe I didn't look close enough at the emails and I don't necessarily look at those emails every day because I'm not a full-time employee there. I look at them I should look at them probably at least once a day, but I don't frequently get emails from students unless they're saying, hey, professor, I'm not gonna be in class today. So I usually wait until the day of or the day before. And they just had these long emails. And so last night came home, I'm like, you've gotta be kidding me. So I went in and I took their pre-test and I'm realizing that's pretty much what this is. I will tell you, when I worked at that school as a full timer, that there have been different situations with students who have particular types of things, particular types of learning. I don't know. I don't want to even say learning. I mean, they may have certain kinds of emotional disabilities, disorders. I don't know. And I'm not diagnosing any of them. But it's just something in their behavior that tells me that, yeah, there's something not right in the way that they're perceiving things or in the way that they're, sometimes they have just a level of anxiety that's just through the roof. And I'm realizing that this training that I was going to take today, which I've decided now I'm not going to take it, because I don't want to spend all day on this for just that. I would rather take mental health training that teaches me a little bit more about people, about students who have different kinds of conditions and how I can potentially talk to or manage those interactions. I don't want to just deal with the ones. I've actually already had training in people who wish to unalive themselves. I've already had certifications in that. I'm like, I don't need another one. And I don't think, everyone tells me this one is great. And I'm like, I've seen this one in action. So I'm going to give you an example. I was working late in my office and I was one of like 2 administrators in that building. And the public service person, she left earlier in the day and I was the head of tech, but I was I had the associate university librarian title. So I was in charge technically of the building while I was there. And the night librarian came in with this student who was very, very distressed. We were supposed to be having an event, but the event wasn't until the next week. Like the girl misread the date or the time. And now she was going to be here for 3 hours because she was waiting for her mom to pick her up or something like that. And this girl was just hysterical. I mean, and the worst part is she was just going, I'm a terrible person for getting this wrong. And it's like, whoa, okay. We really need to kind of de-escalate this. Me and my friend's daughter actually had more experience as night librarians, like, I don't know what to do. So, and I had to call public safety because, which I don't like to do, but the people in the wellness center were not in because it was like 7:30 at night. So, and of course that freaked her out too. And we're like, no, it's just because this is just somebody else who can kind of help. And this guy actually was very good. He came over and he de-escalated her. He's like, okay, no, all right. Well, okay. So you made a mistake. Mom's not around. Can you call dad? And she's like, oh, well, then she was like, oh yeah, I guess I could call dad. So he de-escalated her right away. She called her dad. Her dad was coming in 30 minutes. I said, great. I said, awesome. Glad this was solved. But they brought in somebody from Residence Life. Now, the person they brought in is a really nice person, okay? I'm not denigrating this person at all. But this person said, well, according to my training, I have to ask you, are you feeling like, asking her if she was having, unaliving thoughts. And this girl got re-escalated immediately. And I was like, why did you do that? But that's what they're trained to do. That's what this training trains them to do. If anybody exhibits anything, you immediately have to confront them and ask them if they're having those kinds of thoughts. And I'm like, no, I understand wanting to intervene in certain situations, but I think, okay, this kind of gets around, it also gets around to some conversations about students. I'm teaching this class, and apparently there was a meeting yesterday that I didn't get the memo for, which I probably wouldn't have made it anyway, so it's not a big deal. But it was a meeting for the teachers, and I was like, I think I was supposed to be at this meeting, but I didn't get a message. But in any case, the teachers were all there, and they were all most of them were very upset because they said the students, they're disengaged, they're terrible, they're not paying attention, they're not turning their work in, they're not doing the assignment, blah, 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 blah. They were just going through this whole thing. And I was just like, I don't know. Dumb effery, yeah, that's what Sue is saying. Yeah. I'm just like, I was just like, I don't know. My students, I mean, yeah, there's always the third rule. There's a third who are engaged. There's a third who are kind of, going through the motions. And then there's a third who don't care. And that's always the way it is. And I don't expect any differently. And it's I guess, kind of that. It's dumb effery. You're saying, Suda saying it's so on the nose. Yeah. So I don't know, I guess. And one of the things I know that they tend to do is that they, one of the things that they tend to do is with this is that there's always this sense of having to need to intervene. They'll be like, oh, well, students are absent. You have to file a CARES report. Okay, I have one student who's never shown up, and I filed one of those reports. And what do they say to me? They were like, oh, well, you need to follow up with them again in email before we reach out. And I'm like, I already followed up with them once. And I'm not going to go chase this student. Are you coming to class? Are you coming to class? I don't do that. Okay. My feeling is you're, whether you functionally are a grown up or not, you're a grown up. Okay. I'm not chasing you down. And I do that with my students too. Like they're all like, oh, well, their homework must be in on time, or it must be this and it must be that. And the argument that I get is that, well, if they were a job, it would have to be this way. And I'm like, you know what? I'm kind of managing them the same way I would manage my employees. Everybody has stuff going on. I had a student the other day who was just, she was really, really sick. She had strep. Like when the one day she came into my class after she was better, I could see she had been really sick. And then she had this job interview and she wrote to me. She's like, I'm so sorry. She's like, I feel like I had to keep leaving early and stuff. And she was like so upset about missing class. And I'm like, look, I'm the last person to talk to anybody about having to rearrange schedules because I understand it. I said, and if you're getting ready to graduate and doing different things, you're trying to get different things done and you're also trying to finish up the semester. I said, this class is, it's got to get done, but it's not, I'm realistic about where it falls in the priorities, right? We're going to put this down the priority list. Okay. And, I said, don't worry about it. I said, you're here to, hear what I have to say for the first part. And this is just what you need to get done for the second part. Just turn it into me by Monday. It's all good. She's like, thank you. And she wrote to me later. She's like, if I get this job, because I guess it's at a florist, she's like, I'm going to bring you some flowers. So she's like, because they were just, there just seems to be a gratitude for the fact that, somebody's not standing over them all the time going, you didn't do this way, and you didn't do this on time, and you didn't do this. And I understand that there's a thing about discipline. You want to, people to have a certain sense of discipline. But even with my employees, I'm like, as long as the thing is done by the time I need it to get done, Why do I need to control exactly how you do it? And my students, even though I've given them totally free reign about when they turn in almost anything, everything's in on time. I never have a problem. And I don't know, maybe I'm just got a batch that was, that's reasonably responsible, but I'm sure not all of them are. There are a few that kind of blow off and don't show up, but whatever. I mean, they have to figure it out. I'm not going to figure it out for them. But yeah, it's just interesting. Everybody else is said they're having the absolute worst time and they're very, very frustrated. And I'm like, well, I mean, how much? I remember reading the original syllabus. I'm like, how much are you standing over them? And how much are you giving them assignments that they really do not care about? And then Jenny says, that's because you have real world experience and most of the full timers don't. They live in a dream world and they feel students need to be treated like children. Yeah. Hi, and good morning, Jenny. You're on here. Thank you. Yes. Well, this is it. A lot of them don't have real world. They have real world experience at like the reference desk and stuff like that, but they don't necessarily have teaching experience. But I guess the point that I was making with all of this, that plus what I was saying about that girl the other time, is I said, you've got to read the room. You've got to figure out who your audience is and where they're coming from. You can't just assume that because they're not doing something a certain way that they either hate you or dismissing you or not doing it wrong. Alex would say, I'd be so weirded out if a professor was reaching out to me more than the normal introductory stuff, is what Alex is saying. Yeah, and that's exactly how I feel about it. I don't want to, a lot of them are sending me doctor's notes and stuff. I'm like, okay, if you're not here, I believe you. I mean, I know they have this policy about absences. I'm not even paying any attention to it. Because if they don't show up for class, oh, good morning, yes. Then, yeah, if they don't show up for class, then my feeling is just, okay, well then, you're just not going to pass. And again, I'm kind of, and it's funny because when I do that and then they come later and they go, oh yeah, I haven't been in class. I'm like, yeah, I guess you haven't. I'm like, I said, look, I'm not chasing you down. And I said, and if you wanted to know what you were missing, I said, I have office hours. I'm here. You can email me, reach out, figure something out. If you don't, I don't know what to tell you. And most of them go, oh yeah, I should have taken responsibility for that. Like Alex, like I am the adult, you're the professor. I should be able to choose by pass or fail. Adult, right? Exactly, Alex. And that's the way I look at it. I mean, if they're taking this class and they could have other things going on, but that's the thing too. Like even with mental health, it's like we need to stand over people. I know, okay, and I'm sure people here are like this too. We all have days when we're engaged with everybody, right? And then we have days where we're like, everybody just bugger off. I want to be alone. I don't want to talk to anybody. The training doesn't train them to think outside of the box, is what Jenny is saying. Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. And my thing is just like in that situation I was talking about with that girl, I said, what I was feeling out was it was de-escalated, let her leave. Because now the fact that he did that, she will never ask for help again when she needs it. I know that. And I'm like, that's the unfortunate part. It's, you have to be able to use your intuition to some degree about whether or not you're intervening too much. They blindly follow the steps. Right. And you know what, to be fair, they're probably being told that that's what they must do by their job title. So I don't blame them, but I also don't think that is the way to do things. It's interesting. I saw something yesterday on, I've been seeing a lot in my feed about streams of consciousness, right? And talking about the different theories of consciousness, and this does connect to this. And the main three theories that are out there right now is there's dualism, there's physicalism, and then there's panpsychism. And dualism is one that says that it's the Rene Descartes thing. I think, therefore I am, that your mind and your body are separate. Okay. And that the mind is something that's kind of just floating in the body. And Suda says psychologists are the same too. Yes, and that's exactly what I was going to be getting to right here with this. Okay, so there's the mind-body idea. Probably Freudian psychology and stuff may actually come out of that kind of theoretical framework. But physicality says that that consciousness is a chemical byproduct. Okay. And Jenny says it's not the job title, it's the policy and procedure for the process. Well, yes, well, that too. Well, it comes with the job title, I think, in the case of people who deal with residents and stuff, unfortunately. So, yeah. And the thing is that I was really thinking about this because I said modern psychology, and I was thinking about the one student I have who says, well, I want to do something refuting Freud and everything Freud did. And I'm like, look, there's a lot that Freud did that was that we don't want to do. I mean, there's no question about it. But you don't want to throw away unconscious theory. You don't want to throw away dream theory. Again, reminder, dream classes tomorrow. If people who want to sign up, message me. Or go onto Wix. I actually have it there, transitionlifecoaching.net/event-list. It's on there. But yeah, the idea that none of this really has any validity, and that comes out of the view of consciousness as being chemical. And that is the way that modern psychology is, what we think of as cognitive psychology or neuropsychology comes out of the theory of physicality. That all of this, religion, art, mythology, emotions, all this somehow is a chemical byproduct. And even just saying that out loud, to me, it just sounds dumb. But this is the way that psychology is done. And they say, no, this is the right way. And I'm like, well, then how come so many people seem to be so much worse under this system? How can we still have people who are not, all you're doing is managing their chemistry. You're not really dealing with them as a human being. I don't like the physicality theory because it treats everything as a byproduct. But there's a lot of problems with that theory. And this is why I think Donald Hoffman's the main proponent of this at University of California, Irvine. And it's the panpsychism theory. And he's the one who talks about the idea that our reality is like a hologram. And it's almost like we're an interface. We can't, our minds can't handle reality as it actually is. So we are, we have like an interface for what we need to know, and that's kind of, and that actually to me fits to a certain degree with experience. He may understand it a little bit differently, but to me, the brain is there to create order, to make sense of things. It doesn't define what reality actually is. And panpsychism also says it's about the way that our consciousness is actually connected with the rest of the universe. Okay, that in other words, your consciousness, everything to a certain degree, and they're not saying that means that everything is conscious, but that to a certain degree there is a consciousness that things have. And like there's some frequency that they vibrate at. There's something. And I think probably a lot of people here can understand that. And Joanne says it's about actively listening to the person and helping them pull out feelings in a safe environment and finding healthy coping strategies. Yeah. And, but there's the word there, coping strategies. And I realize that on one level, that is something that people are looking for and that is helpful. And cognitive therapies are really about kind of changing the way you think about things. But I just feel like when we are really dealing with the science of the soul, it's not just about what traumatizes us and what triggers us, or not just about the moments of anxiety. Although to be fair, those are the moments that people go to a therapist, right? But when there's kind of more of a long-standing dissatisfaction with life, or there's a long-standing something doesn't feel right, I don't feel like I'm in my place, I don't feel like I'm in this particular situation, I just feel like we don't address enough of that. It's more like we're going through life as triage. Everything is just triage. Let's fix you up from one emergency to the next. And and Alistair says, sounds like the Eastern approach. Well, yes, exactly. And it's interesting because I think panpsychism comes a lot out of, quantum theory and things like that. So interesting. These thoughts about psych resonates. I had a long chat with a friend about these topics, is what Suda says. This is definitely more of an approach that says that focuses on the connections. The other ones are too separatist and they treat consciousness as an accident. And I'm like, but the other theory says consciousness was here before you got here. It's just, and you're in it as much as to the degree that you are, because your brain is developed a certain way, as much as other things are. But their consciousness is what we would call would be different. Problem is when we say consciousness, it's like sometimes when people use the word God, they always think it means the same thing, but the consciousness, say, of a plant is not going to be the same as a consciousness of that. She says, but in crisis counseling, it's about bringing them to the functional state so they can delve deeper. Well, right, exactly. Well, yeah, exactly, Joanne. And I think what we're saying, though, is just that, yeah, there's a lot about triage, but then there's the idea, think about how insurance companies approach it, okay? Because what is an insurance company to? You get 6 sessions, because the idea is that, okay, you're going to go into therapy and that's all they're looking to do. that's all they're willing to pay for. Let's put it that way. They, that's all we're willing to pay for is for you to just, to stop the bleeding and, hobble on, and yeah. So yeah, no, I understand there's an idea of needing to manage the crisis first. But I guess the point I was making was more that our current theories of psychology come more out of a chemical way of looking at things. There's the idea that people should be on certain medications. When you see things about certain types of interventions when people are younger, it's always about looking at what's going on chemically. And chemical, I mean, I'm not saying it's not, I would then recommend therapy for longer term is what you would do. Well, sure. And probably that might be the case. But we don't live in a society there's an approach with this that suggests that all of this just has an kind of immediate physical. In other words, the ideas of unconsciousness and so forth, at least for some, now maybe not the way you were trained. I mean, again, I don't know. I haven't taken that particular track, so I don't know. But the reason I do psychodynamic psychotherapy is because to me, that deeper dive is important. And I think that that's something, and again, it does depend on the stage of development too, because therapy for younger people, for children versus adolescents versus young adults versus people over a certain age are going to probably be, different approaches are probably going to work better for different people. So it's not that there isn't a physical component to it that needs to be addressed, but I feel like all of psych theory has been geared towards the physicality model, the physicalism model. And that I think is a mistake. I don't think, I think that it discounts a lot of these other things that we need to be looking at. And again, and I'm just using this example kind of as what I'm saying. And Alex says, I can't even tell you how many claims I bill daily for under 18 for inpatient mental health. Everyone has the same diagnosis. Interesting to see from my vantage point. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, there's a lot that goes on, and right. And my feeling is some of this, I think to some degree, some of this is because we are overanalyzing stages of development from a young age. Now, yes, there are some people who need intervention and the intervention helps. In a crisis, though, they're not ready to deep dive. You have to level them out. It's not a long-term solution. No, I definitely understand what you're saying, Joanne, about that. And I'm not trying to derail and say that that's bad and you shouldn't do that. What I'm saying is that that's a component of it, but that shouldn't be all of it. And I know you're not saying it is all of it, but my point is that a lot of times the focus ends up making that all of it. And to me, it's more, there's an analysis to a point, or there's a judgment to a point that we're not feeling out the person. There's not, it's not done that way. And Sue said, yes, they can hand out anxiety diagnosis like candy. Right. And there's a lot of kids, and I have a lot of students who will come in and will say like, oh, well, they'll tell me, oh, well, I suffer from this anxiety or that one. And we're not even talking about people who are like on the spectrum or anything like that. Just, oh, I have this one. No, just in crisis intervention. No, right. And I understand what you're saying. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that there is a lot of focus on crisis intervention. And yeah, just like you need an emergency room, right? You do need that. But there's also more of the long-term mental health wellness that I think is not, yeah. And Suda says the context matters, right? Right, exactly. And so it's not that is bad. Obviously, there are cases where you absolutely need that. People who are in these immediate situations that have the intervention. But my point is that the overall psych theory, if I'm looking at it from an academic standpoint, tends to focus almost exclusively on the idea of managing brain chemistry. And I know because I've also been the psych of religion chair, and even psych of religion has been going in that direction. We're talking about it from the point of view of cognitive science. We're talking about it from the point of view of neuropsychology. And I'm not saying those. The thing about panpsychism is it tries to bring both approaches together. And a lot of this has to do with your approach to consciousness, because psychology has to do with your mental health. It has to do with your psyche. It has to do with your beliefs about things. So the way in which you are approaching that, I think, makes a difference. If you are making the assumption that everything is just a chemical response, then it can be a problem. Alex says exactly. How do we go forward and help people learn to be a human in a body outside the triage. Chemical isn't the only way. Right. And that's just it. And I sometimes wonder with these younger people, again, because they come into my classes. I remember I had one myth class where I only brought this up tangentially. I don't want to get into people's personal issues or data, but all the students started raising their hand and telling me what they'd been on since like the age of 9 and how they felt about it. And I was like, okay, you didn't have to do that. But anxiety runs comorbid with like 50 other diagnoses. It's not the root cause. Well, sure. Right. Well, you're right. You're exactly right. And that's the thing. Right. In terms of what's working for me personally is meditation, like for Sudha. Right. It's different for different people. But yeah, and I understand. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. It's just, but I don't. But again, there's too much of a focus on that and not enough of a focus on the big picture. I don't think we're saying some things that are different. I think that there's too much of a focus on, we're not saying that isn't important, but there needs to be a focus on the bigger picture as well. So in any case, the point that I was trying to make here is that I'm thinking about that. I said a lot of what we think about the way psychology is framed these days is based on this physicalist approach. Because, and I know, because when I read the research, because also insurance talks about, well, we only pay for things that are evidence-based. Well, evidence-based a lot of times has to do with what can be tested and measured. And so things like, for example, psychoanalytic case study is not admissible as evidence because they say, well, that just seems subjective, right? That's why I like holistic practice. Mind, body, and spirit need to align. Yes, exactly. Right. No, I agree totally agree. I just, and I know that there's certain approaches you have to take in a crisis, but like in the example that I was giving, it was just like, there was a girl where I could sense that, yes, there was definitely a bigger issue going on there. It wasn't just about like she didn't have somebody to pick her up. And she was probably somebody who was very afraid of making. And I'm thinking, okay, she probably does need to be talking to somebody on a regular basis. She probably needs something. But for somebody to come in the triage moment and say something to just escalate the whole situation, I'm like, look, I said, I'm not a therapist and I'm reading the situation. I'm like, that is but procedurally I'm supposed to say this. And I'm like, that's the worst thing you could have said to her. Because I felt it in this girl. She could not wait to get away from us after that because she felt like she was being cornered. Like, oh, is it this? Is it this? Are you this? Are you feeling this way? Are you feeling this way? It's like, get away from her. Like, give her some breathing space. Jesus, like you said, she like kind of what you were saying to your point about needing a safe space. She needs a safe space to chill out. You know what I mean? She doesn't need to be in this space where people are tackling her, and yeah. And Joanne says, no, it's not appropriate. Right. And see, I guess that's what I'm saying, that some of these methods that they teach people, maybe people who aren't therapists, and maybe a therapist would have a better context for doing this. Like, like, for example, if you were in that situation, probably you would be able to look at it and manage it in a much better way than they did. And again, I realized the guy was super nice. He wanted to be super helpful. He was not, but he was doing what he had, the boxes he had to check for his job. And I'm like, that's not a box you should have to check. I understand why that's part of the protocol, but if you see that this person, like, yeah, it's also not how intervention works, untrained people, right? Or people kind of like Jenny said before, who are trained and then they decide that that this is how they have to apply it, and I can imagine some university administrator telling them that they're required to do this. And no, I mean, I swear to God, if I was someplace and I was anxious and needed help, and then somebody came up to me and said, by the way, do you feel like you want to, I'd be like, get the F away from me. Like, what are you talking about? It's not personal. He's not qualified. Yeah, right. Well, no, exactly. No, understood. He's somebody, but he is somebody who's supposed to have that kind of training by the job title that he had. So, yeah. And so that's why, I guess this all circles around to why I'm not doing this particular training, because I'm like, I think this is the training that they're getting. And I did the pretest, and after doing the pretest, I'm like, because basically basically one of the questions was, would you feel comfortable just walking up to somebody and asking if they were suicidal. I was like, I'm not really, I was not quite sure how I felt about that. And I was like, I've had other training and I don't think that this one's going to be particularly helpful. I don't want to use 6 hours of my life for that, especially since apparently there was all this work I was supposed to do before and I had no idea that that was part of this. So anyway, that's kind of where all this started. But yeah, but I was thinking, I was kind of connecting this because I was just thinking about these theories of consciousness, and it did occur to me that, yeah, okay, yeah, oh my God, what? Yeah, right, Joanne, yeah, exactly. This was on the pretest, and I was like, I'm like, no, I would never walk up to somebody and just say, pretty alarmist, right? I feel like, I don't know. I mean, it's not like you don't deal with mental health issues like the way you deal with football. It's like you don't come in and tackle people. I can write a book for them. WTF is what Joanne's saying. Yeah, this is the kind of thing. Now, I don't know. I haven't gone through the training, but everything I was seeing in the pretest, plus they were asking me to answer questions about the pretest about certain approaches and acronyms and stuff where they really hadn't told you anything about it. I'm like, how am I even going to answer this question? Like, you've not given me any information about it at all, and it's not like one of those basic things. It's not like asking a question like for instance, like, which of these do you think is a sign of somebody in distress or something like that? To me seems to be more of a pre-test kind of a question, and then in the post-test, saying, oh, okay, now do you better recognize maybe when somebody has certain signs or something. But I have a feeling, like a lot of things, they're probably overkill. It's probably anybody who looks like they're sad. Well, everybody gets sad. Everybody gets days when they withdraw. Everybody gets days when they put their earbuds in and be like, leave me alone. I mean, I'm like that, and I'm sure I get depressed from time to time, but so does everybody. Clinical depression is something that's more of a long-term pattern. It's not, and it doesn't necessarily, lead down that path. I mean, I'm sure that there are specific signs and symptoms, but judging from that, it just seems like, if somebody's upset and crying, like, that's not a question you want to ask them in that moment. I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So let's get on to our reading for today, because we are at 8:07 already. So I was going to do a different kind of reading today, but maybe I'll do it tomorrow. So anyway, yeah, just kind of a little interesting discussion here about things. But I guess the point I was trying to make is that sometimes the best approach with people is to just have your hand. I'm sorry, but if they have a psych department, they should be handling that. Well, they do. And actually, yeah, there's a reason I'm not taking my degree here, even though technically I could probably do it for free. There's a reason I'm not doing it with this psych department. But anyway, yeah, it's, yeah, they had, this was, I don't know, I feel like this was some outside agency that was handling it. And Joanne says, that's nuts. Yeah, it is. You're definitely right. But my point is just in general with students, you could have students who are just kind of wandering around and feel like they're lost or whatever. And sometimes what I'm finding, a lot of times people say like, oh, well, we better find out what's wrong. We better come over and intervene. We better do this. And I'm like, maybe you should just leave them the hell alone. Maybe people just want to be left alone. And you're kind, you are approachable, you make yourself available if the person wants to speak to you. Otherwise, I'll say to the student, if I say to them everything's okay and they say, oh yeah, I go, okay. Yeah, you don't get up in people's business. But and they will. And sometimes students will be like, oh, you mean, oh, you're okay with this? Oh, you're okay with that? And then they kind of soften. And then they immediately fall in line, because this is the same way I used to manage. I was like, you don't manage by, no micromanagement. You don't stand over people and say like, are you doing this? Are you okay? Why aren't you doing this? Why didn't you come to class today? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Or maybe ask, hey, how are you doing? Yeah, there you go. There's a concept, right? I do. My students come in, I say, like, how are you? Sometimes they answer me, sometimes they don't. Okay, whatever. But I make myself approachable. And so when students do have issues, then they're more inclined to say, oh, this thing's going on, and, I might, this is happening, and that's, yeah. And and again, if I feel it's not something I'm qualified to handle, I refer them to somebody else. But most of the time they're just kind of like, oh yeah, I have this test today, and I still have 50 questions. And, these are the kinds of things that I get. And I go, oh, okay, well, good luck with that, And so on and so forth. Just, I don't know. But at the same time, be personable, be there, but also not be up in everybody's business all the time, you know? And so, yeah, anyway, that's kind of, that was kind of, I feel like one of the things that came out of this whole retrograde thing is just sometimes knowing when to back off or when not to talk, right? Sometimes there's times when people want to insert themselves, same deal with kids, right? A little bit of warmth and space. Exactly. Right. Yeah, you need to give people a little bit of space sometimes to do their thing, and not to get, because when we over worry about it, I feel like there's like an over element potentially. And again, I'm not talking about people with their kids and stuff, but just sometimes there's an over element of control in the way that they're doing it. You're not behaving exactly this way, so now we need to diagnose and fix you like right now. And the person might be like, no, I just want to do my thing. And yeah, and generally, if you continually knock on the door and go, what's going on? Are you okay? What are you doing in there? What are you doing in there? I mean, people eventually are going to be like hiding from you, like, get away from me. Stop bothering me. And then if that person really is in a situation where they need help, they're going to be afraid, because they're afraid they're going to be tackled and labeled and, because of the way that they're doing it. So it's, yeah, there's a lot of this out there. So anyway, I guess that's just my thing. And that's my approach to my friendships too. I'm just like, sometimes I have friends who disappear on me for months, and I'm like, okay, well, they're busy. And then eventually they pop up again. They're like, hey, I haven't talked to you. And I can be the same way. So not because, but again, same reason, not because I want to be unfriendly, but because there's a lot going on and I'm just trying to manage my space one day at a time, So yeah, absolutely nothing personal about it. So anyway, let's get on to, Tara's taught me about the fact that there could be at least 78 possibilities. That's like Rachel Pollack's book there. Yep. It's, yeah, right. There's absolutely tarot. And that's what I said. I think tarot is a great tool. There are people who are just think it's either, like I said at the beginning, there's people who get on and go, oh, it's all BS. And then you get people who get on and are like, I think this is witchcraft or the devil's work. And I'm like, so, I mean, well, not, it's really not. What they're thinking of is not what it is. And frequently, and there are certain branches of psychotherapy that do actually use tarot as a tool. In fact, that's why my sister's doing it right now, because she's seen psychotherapists that use it, and she was just like, oh, maybe I could try that at home. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, who would have thunk, right? But, because then, people who don't know, my sister is somebody who's not, she's very non-spiritual. She's just like, nope. So, yeah. So anyway, okay, let's get on to our reading for today. Speaking of tarot. Okay, our center card here is the Thunderbolt. Yeah, do we feel like everything's falling apart? It's, yeah, Thunderbolt, Tower. Things feel like they're breaking apart. And we have the Dream card of what we're not seeing. The Dream is the Six of Cups, okay? So things not, the image or expectation not matching the reality, okay? It's about, in this particular deck, or there may be a longing for a time in the past. There may be a longing for simpler times. Okay, I feel like there's an energy of that with this. But the external feeling of which we are aware is the Seven of Swords, the politics card. Okay, and what's politics? Reminds me of what Steve Judd actually said. He says, watch out for self-sabotage in the next couple of weeks. It could be self-sabotage, could be sabotage from somebody else, but to a certain degree, as we've said, what's outside is also inside. Yeah, there's a lot of sabotage. I feel like, Joanne, you asked me about this too the other day, kind of about, there's this idea of testing energy, right? And yeah, I mean, to a certain degree, there's the question of, how are we being manipulated by the outside? Because there is a lot on the outside that there are a lot of forces out there right now that could be very manipulative, in the sense of, again, with these retrogrades especially, very easy for misunderstanding, manipulation, misrepresentation. Okay, there's a lot of energy of this, and many of us just want to. I mean, the Dream could also be a certain Piscean, like, I just want to escape into something nice. I don't want to be dealing with this right now. And Joanne says, yes. Yeah, it's that kind of a thing. And then we have the totality card here. It's funny, I got this as an outcome for another reading today. 5 of Wands. So 5 of Wands, yeah, this is the conflicts that go on. But when 5 of Wands shows up, the conflict is more of a petty conflict. It's not, it becomes something, it's where something appears to be bigger than what it is. And what it says to us is make sure we're focused. I'd say I got a tower hit this week, indeed. Yeah, if you need to call me after this, go ahead. I mean, I'm actually going to be around this morning, so feel free. But it's but yeah, this is this idea of focus, right? That things are going on, and that we you know, that we need to remember, we need to not let this kind of stuff derail us from where we are. To knock us off our center. Because as we showed, these are the two trapeze artists, right? You know, one has to grab the hands of the other. Don't let yourself get thrown off your balance. And it's really funny, I'm talking about balance, and then we've got the Fool. We've got this guy who's balancing on the edge of a cliff. And that's kind of the thing. You're walking on the edge of the cliff, so make sure you're keeping your balance, you know? But the Fool is ultimately about letting things go, about taking risks. It's that Aries energy. And it's also a reminder, I think, that we're at the beginning of a new cycle. And whenever a cycle begins, there is always upsets, problems, obstacles, snafus, you know, things like that occur. So I'm almost feeling like, and I also don't feel like the Fool means there's going to be a point in time where there's a breathing space, where there's going to be a point where it's just kind of like, I might need to pull myself together. It's affecting my work. Yeah. Well, it has been a tough one, Joanne. I mean, to be fair, it has been this has been really tough. I'm still in the absurdity all, which feels just fine. Very Fool energy. Yeah. Well, that's it too. And that's a good word there too, Alex, because absurdity. It's kind of like what I said when I told the story about finishing my master's thesis. There's an absurdity where you get to the point where you're like, okay, this has literally crossed the point of, now we're, it's crossed the point of pain to like, just like, I can't do anything but laugh at this, you know? It's just like, you have one thing. There was, I don't know. Okay, it's after time, but I'll just say this quickly. There's a video from the 80s. I remember it was a Billy Joel video. He had a song called She's Right on Time. If you can find that video on YouTube, it's absolutely hilarious. And I feel like just the video itself illustrates kind of how I feel this time frame has been. But it's funny. It's really funny. And I mean, it's funny, not funny, but it's funny. So anyway, I can recommend that people check that one out. Let me just do one more pull for everybody. Yeah, launching your journey. Okay, that's our last card. And launching your journey, just quickly, what does it say? The universe wants you to know, where have you always wanted to go? There's your Fool energy. What have you always wanted to do or be? This is the time to make it happen. Launch yourself forward and explore the world around you. However, before any journey, inner or outer, take time to prepare for the adventure ahead. Know where you are and where you want to go. How will you get there? What steps are necessary to take the leap? Have a clear vision, but be prepared for the unexpected. Allow the journey to bring as much joy as the destination. Okay, so Fool might again be reminding us to not take the collective too seriously, or take people. It's but of course, in certain moments, it's really hard to do that. But as I can totally understand. So anyway, I'm past time. Thank you guys for joining me. Always enjoy these little morning chats, and I should be back on tomorrow. And yeah, I am doing the dream class tomorrow. For anybody who wants to join me, go ahead and either register at Wix or message me, and I will get you fixed up. And yeah, with that, I will see you guys tomorrow one way or the other.